Welcome to the Beyond the Vines podcast, where I interview local business owners in Sonoma County to highlight small business and grow our community. I'm your host, Amy Ehlers, a mom, realtor, and Sonoma County native, and I'm excited to connect you to some amazing people in this beautiful area that we call home. Welcome back to the Beyond the Vines podcast, and thanks again for listening. I'm really grateful that I've had such a great following on here. Please, I would be so grateful if you could remember to like and subscribe at the end if you do like what you're listening to. It helps so much for these small businesses to be able to have the podcast and have it pop up automatically on your feed wherever you stream from. So I'm so appreciative of everyone. And while I generally interview small businesses, I'm actually here today with an organization that I think is so important to Sonoma County, really crucial for our youth. And I would really like to spread the word in that way about other organizations and not just businesses. Today I have Sonia Byck-Barwick from SAY, which is Social Advocates for Youth. It was founded in 1971, and they are the leader in youth services for Sonoma County. They provide housing, counseling, crisis, and career services to youth, families, and children, including over 60,000 children and youth actually so far to date. And it is such an honor to have Sonia here today to tell us more about it. So welcome so much, Sonia, for being here. I'm so glad you're here to share more about this. Yeah. I think it's so important for everybody to know more about this organization, to know how they can help, to know if they need help, to be able to spread the word in that way as well. So I'm really grateful that you're here. So
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Can you provide an overview of what Social Advocates for Youth is, SAY, and what kind of the mission of the organization is?
Well, we started back, as you said, in 1971, so it's been 52 years, and it started because back then it was actually against the law to run away from home. So what would happen if a youth ran away from home would be that they would likely end up in juvenile detention. And so it really took the youth from maybe a bad situation to maybe even a worse situation and took them down a path that would lead not to the best outcomes. So there was a group of very concerned citizens who saw this happening, including a probation officer and a lawyer, a judge. So there's this group who was like, we have to figure out a way to change this. So we started as an organization who worked with a lot of other organizations, youth organizations, to change that law. So in 1974, that law got changed, and it no longer is a crime. And then it became federal dollars became available to work with these youth to change that path. And so that's what we try to do. We basically meet the youth where they are, and we try to change their path and take it to somewhere where they can thrive.
That's incredible. And it's incredible to look back and think that that was the way that the law was, and that SAY was a big part of having that changed. I can't imagine being stuck in a situation like that and then also not being able to run away from it.
Right.
So that's really scary, and what an incredible opportunity you provide people.
Yes. So we do what you said. We basically we work with youth in crisis. Mm-hmm. That's what we do, and then we try to bring those youth out of crisis into housing, which is our second pillar of what we do. And then while they're with us, we try to also do counseling and careers. So you don't actually have to be an SAY youth in our housing program to get the counseling and the careers, but it's offered to the youth who stay with us as well. So it's a very comprehensive program, and we really try to, like I said, be where the youth need us. And so it's amazing to see how it all works. I'm still very inspired. I've been with SAY for 2 years, and I'm just so inspired by everything our programs offer to the youth.
I think that's so important, too, that you mentioned that you don't necessarily have to be in the housing program to be able to get the help you need and the services you need. So I think it's important to spread that as well, that especially the counseling services, that's huge. Yeah. And for all of, all the kids in Sonoma County coming out of the pandemic, I think that was huge and necessary. But then also if they don't have access to that otherwise, I think that's great. Yeah. So I'm glad you're able to take care of the youth in that way, and that we could spread the word a little bit about it. Although I've heard about the organization so many times, I've been saying I need to become a part of this. Yeah. I think originally I heard about it from Heather Nelson, and I think she's on the board.
Yes, she is.
And she's actually going to be on here in a couple weeks too.
Good.
Yeah. So and I remember thinking that's something that I would like to be a part of and help out with, because what's more important than helping that next generation? That's who's going to be representing all of us. So.
It is. And one of the things I love about our program is that we actually are also trying to change that trajectory. So when I first started, I learned about our the cottage we have, the housing cottages for pregnant and parenting youth.
Amazing.
And so what we're trying to do with that is not just help that youth, but also change that pattern, because if they come from generational homelessness and they don't really have that solid footing that you might need, we can start fresh, and they have their young children, and you can really give them that grounding that they need to really launch. And we see it happen over and over again, where these young women are really given really what they need to thrive, and then we know that the children will too. So it's like changing it from the very beginning, which I think is really amazing.
What an incredible thing to be a part of.
I know, it is.
I
feel very
That's
lucky.
incredible. Yeah. Well, so that's one success story. I mean, in general, do you have any other success stories of youth that have come through the program or families that have?
Well, for me, and I might, I get emotional. I
know.
think
I was like,
about,
don't cry in this
right,
episode.
I know. Well, for me, I'm out a lot in the community. That's a big part of my job. And so I run into a lot of people who are very successful in our community that have used our program.
Oh, I love that.
And it just, right? I mean, that's when I just really, there's two times. This when the youth come in and I interact with them and I see them, that is where it's like, ugh. But then the other side of it is then the side where you see them and they're saying, wow, you changed my life. If I hadn't met, and sometimes sometimes it's an hour with a counselor. There's stories where people come out of, they were coming out of juvenile detention, they got one counseling session and it changed the trajectory. One gentleman I know who told a story similar to that, and he still inspires me to really be really understanding that it only sometimes takes that one adult to really change where you're going. And so every day, really kind of when I'm out and about, somebody will say, my nephew used your services, my niece, and they're doing so much better. And I can't, there's so many stories. And one of the ones when I was still at my last job at Paradise Ridge, I was saying that I was leaving and I was going to be at SAY, and this woman grabbed my arm and she said, during the pandemic, the teacher noticed that her son was struggling, and referred him to SAY, and we were able to get him the counseling he needed, and he's thriving now.
That's incredible.
And I just was so this is before I started, I was just wow. But, those stories are happening every day, and those changes are happening in the youth that we serve every day, really. So, those touch points, and then the longer services and really changing the trajectory. There's just so many stories. So, yeah.
Well, and inspiring for you and the other volunteers and staff, I'm sure, to be able to keep everybody going, because this is, I'm sure, an exhausting job as well.
Right.
But then also for the kids that are in the programs now to be able to say, this could be you at some point. Look where they are now. This was you.
Right.
And so I think that's so great for them, too.
Yeah. It is. It's, we hope that's what the youth see, because we do have.
When you're in it.
Yeah, it's hard when you're in it.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's hard to see. This is why we're a housing first organization, is because until you are stabilized, you can't see much.
Past that.
Yeah. You just need that stabilization before you can move on. So,
absolutely. Yeah, that's our number one need, right? We can't think long term if we don't have shelter.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Great. Do you collaborate, does SAY collaborate with any local community organizations, schools, anything like that? Obviously, there was a school referral, so I'm guessing,
Yeah, so we work really closely with different schools, and so we work with them in two levels. We a lot of times we go to the schools and offer counseling, so we can provide counseling services, but we also work with them, the schools particularly. We go to their wellness fairs, we go everywhere, because we're trying to be where the youth are.
Yes.
And so you will see our street outreach program, which also goes out into the community and finds youth that are homeless. They also go to the schools and talk about our program. So when a youth comes into, in fact, this is one of my most recent. The other day I went to work. It wasn't that long ago, and a young woman came up to me, and her mother had kicked her out that morning.
Wow.
She's like, I need a job. I need somewhere to live. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was a little shell-shocked.
Yeah.
Because it's
not how you expected to start your morning there,
exactly.
I assume. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I did not expect that. And when, I was trying to keep the conversation going and, talk to her and keep myself calm, she seemed actually a little more calm than I was feeling. And she said she'd found us through her school.
Wow.
And it just made me so okay, what we're doing is working. It's getting the youth who need us where they need to be. So it was really like one of those, it has a sadness to it, and then it has the good feeling that you're being where you need to be. So on top of the schools, we also partner with about 100 or more organizations throughout Sonoma County, depending on what you're thinking. So from a business standpoint, we partner with Clover, and they give us a lot of product. They donate a lot of product to our teen shelter. Great. And so we have a lot of businesses like that, which is what I do, the community partnership with the businesses. And then we also work with a lot of nonprofits. There's Verity and Voices and all these other nonprofits. Wonderful. So we are constantly referring our youth to all these other programs as well, and they're doing the same to us. And it's this huge, beautiful web of services and people who care that we are able to refer to, and they refer to us. So it's really amazing. And the businesses, Sonoma County businesses, are very generous, and we're very lucky to have a lot of really strong partnerships. So
And if any of those pop in your mind as we talk, feel free to give them all shout outs.
Oh, yeah.
Or any that are there if you think of any.
I mean, Oliver's Market has been a huge, and GNC Auto Body has been a big sponsor for us. Sutter Hospital, they donated our Dream Center to us, so, we have, I'm almost a little afraid to keep going.
You don't want to forget anybody.
I don't want to forget anybody because we do have so many, every board member we have most of them are with businesses and they support us, and Redwood Credit Union. I mean, the list goes on, and all these organizations. That's, it's what it takes to be a healthy community is to have everybody helping together, and the youth are our future. So, really all these organizations helping the youth really lifts our whole community up.
So great. It makes me so proud of our community to know that that's going on behind the scenes, that many organizations and businesses are involved in this. It's so incredible.
And one of the things, speaking of Sonoma County, and is that rumor has it, and I believe it's true, that more nonprofits have been started in Sonoma County than any other place in the United States.
That's incredible.
And I think that just shows the generosity of the hearts here in Sonoma County, and going back to say, the 5 people who really saw a need and changed it, changed it for the whole United States,
that's
really,
incredible.
Right? Yeah. It really makes you proud to be part of Sonoma County and to live here. So.
Well, and that's a reminder too, to be passionate when you see something that's wrong, something that you care about. That's just a reminder of how far it can go, and the changes that can come out of that.
Exactly.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of our community too, and that's just so great to hear that. Can you describe the role of any mentors that you have or volunteers that you have that come? Do you have a big volunteer program where people come and help?
So, we don't have a huge amount of volunteers. What we have that really is the main volunteer opportunity is we have what we call meal trains. So we, in our housing program, we have 5 different, including the youth and parenting cottage that I mentioned, and the coffee house, which is for the youth that are 12 to 18. And then we have at the Dream Center, we have a short-term housing and a short-term shelter and long-term housing. Okay. And for the short-term shelter, those are youth literally that are coming off of the street. So we have this what's called the meal train. And for those youth, we want them to get home-cooked meals every night.
Absolutely.
So we you can go and register to bring a meal for 15 youth. And so we serve those meals for you, to the youth. So it's this really amazing volunteer opportunity you can do from home, and you can bring the food to us. So that's the biggest volunteer opportunity coming up. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit.
Yes.
We have a big event called
One Cold Night. If you want.
Can we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have One Cold Night coming up Should I go into it? And then I'll talk about volunteering for it.
This is the coolest event.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have an event coming up on November 17th called One Cold Night, where we're asking community members to sleep outside for a night in solidarity with the 294 youth that sleep outside every night, which is
294.
Yes. And that's not including the ones that we are, taking care of, and also doesn't include the ones that are sleeping on couches or, it's really the ones that are outside, don't have sleeping. Somewhere to go. So we do this event, and it's really an advocacy event, and then fundraising is part of it as well. But the advocacy is where we're really trying to get the word out there, like today, on what we do. So we're really trying to be where the community learns more about us, where the youth learn more about us, where people can hear about each of the programs and how they can participate or use the programs. So we will have about 50 sleepers.
Wow.
That will spend one night outside, rain or shine. There won't be shining because it'll be night. But if and we start that with what's called the One Cold Gathering. So we're getting together the community. We invite them to come. We light candles, and it's a very moving gathering.
Beautiful.
Really excited because I'm going to give a shout out to Ryan Woodard. I don't know if you've been hearing about him.
No.
He's a young boy in Santa Rosa who was featured in the Press Democrat because he didn't speak for 10 years. And then he started playing music, and that was how he found his voice. Amazing. And when I heard about him, I was like, I'm hoping maybe he can come. So he will be there that
incredible.
Night.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited about that. But the whole One Cold Gathering leads the sleepers into, their evening, and they spend the night outside. And we do a lot of touch points through the evening to really make it something that you walk away with deeper knowledge of what our youth go through. Yep. So it's a very, very impactful event. It has so many facets, the advocacy and the fundraising and the gathering and then the sleeper experience. So it's really, really, I heard about this event before I started with SAY, and it was so inspiring. I was so glad that I now have the opportunity to be part of it.
That's incredible.
So we're looking for volunteers for that night.
Okay.
So we will be, I'm looking, there's about 25 spots for different volunteers, and it does run all through the night, so a couple of them are in the middle of the night. You'll be with me, so that's fun.
Right.
So we'll be looking for volunteers to help, set up in the parking and all the things. So I'll be setting that out, and that there'll be a link to that. Be put onto our social medias and things like that. So there'll be a way for people to sign up. So I'd love to see that roster full of volunteers, and so those are the kind of things. And then we have our big fundraising event in the spring, which we need volunteers for as well.
What is that one?
That's called Diamonds and Denim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of this one. So
so that's it's going to be on April 13th of next year.
Okay.
Yes, Heather is helping me a lot
I was going to say,
that.
I'm pretty sure I know someone that can help you with that.
And she brings in her team at Set and Strike. So there's a lot of, it's amazing our community.
Yes.
As you know,
yes.
how
everyone's connected.
Yes, everyone's connected. And so, so we have this big event, and it really is, it's another touch point for us to talk about who we are and what we do and raise funds for these important programs.
Yeah, because that's the only way they can keep running, I assume.
Exactly.
There's not enough federal, I'm sure.
No.
Yeah.
No,
not even close.
It really takes our community to support us in all these programs. Great. And what I learned, and I'm sure most people know this, but I was shocked because I was born and raised in Sonoma County and grew up with SAY. I kind of thought there was an SAY in every community.
Oh, yes. Good
and
point.
It's
and there's not.
No. Yes. We're very unique, and we feel so lucky that we can offer these services to our youth. And it does take a lot of funds to do that, and they're not all readily available. So it's a constant thing to be trying to keep those monies coming in to support these youth.
Great.
Even if you've been around 50 years, you're still really working hard, and everything, as you know, in Sonoma County, things are expensive, and raising children is expensive, and that's what we're doing. We're raising youth. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So the biggest ways to give back would be to cook meals for the short-term housing, and you can volunteer for that, and also supporting those two events, whether volunteering for setup, sponsoring someone that is sleeping, right? Okay, great. That's super helpful.
Yeah.
What exciting events those are too, and like such an educational way to do this. It's not just, it's an experience. It's an experience,
and I've run into a number of sleepers. And it really changes how you see everything. That's what I hear. I am so excited to participate because it really changes your perspective on everything you experience and see it through a different lens. And I think that is how you change how people think and feel and give and all that sort of stuff, is to look at that from a different perspective. So. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. What challenges has SAY encountered as like either countywide, statewide, or just challenges in trying to take care of everyone? Or
well, I think one of our main things is that, getting the youth to actually come into the services, because the youth that we work with, 9 out of 10 of them don't have a single adult they can trust. This is in our housing program. When we bring them in, we're at 9 out of 10, 90%.
Wow.
And so when we approach them, right, with our street outreach team, who are amazing, shout out to the amazing people who go out every day and try to, connect with these youth. They do connect. They don't try. They actually do. But it takes about 8 touches for the youth to start, to really be like ready to come in. So, when you see the people with the signs and they're asking for money, that is not a youth.
Right.
The youth are hiding. They want nothing to do with adults because they don't trust adults. And so they're somewhere else, and we go out and we find those youth. So really one of our big challenges is getting to the youth and really showing them that we are trustworthy and that what we're going to do is going to help them. And so that's a really big challenge, because you're trying to have those individual touch points, and so we go to the same places every week so that the youth start to trust, build that trust with us. And so that's really one of the bigger things. The other thing we touched on earlier is really funding, So one of our big thing that we run into is that our contracts change, right? So, 1 year we'll get a contract and then maybe we won't get it. And it's like, it really makes it hard to keep the funding steady for the program. Right. So that's
predict what you're going to have for the next year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, and I've learned so much about contracts and what happens and grants and all these things, because they're amazing and they're what keep us going, but they're also limited in a lot of different ways. So then you're kind of challenged. That's a huge challenge, is to work around that and continue offering all these important programs. We actually lost, we have it back, but we did lose the program, the funding for our street outreach program.
Wow.
And that was just like, and luckily the government could see, like, this is
That's the most crucial aspect of,
I don't think it was just us. I think it was more organizations who were like, wait, what just happened?
Right.
Like, we need to provide this. And then they came back around and they reopened it and allowed a few more organizations. And we got our funding back for that, and which is just such a relief, because it's, it's just so frightening to me to think about what would happen if we are not doing this, if we're not out there, if we're not bringing these youth in and we're not helping them. I mean, it's just not what anybody wants to see.
Right.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, I can't even imagine that challenge. And I'm glad, at least for that one, source that they, sometimes I'm sure when they're figuring everything out, you don't see who's going to be affected until you're reminded.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of hands out,
Absolutely.
And so, of course, like I said, when I first started, it was like, everybody's going to want to give to homeless youth. But, there are a lot of great nonprofits and things like that. But, of course, I believe that what we're doing really is the core of a thriving society, is providing for these youth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our community as a whole.
Yes.
To be able to help, again, the next generation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Great. Wonderful. SAY's commitment to fostering leadership and self-sufficiency is very impressive. Can you explain how important that is for young people to develop these skills?
Yeah. So you really, as a youth, you really need a foundation to grow on. So having our, the people who work with these youth, give them we get youth that have had generational homelessness, and they haven't been shown how to do, sometimes even make mac and cheese and some basic things, brush your teeth. There's a lot of things that we were taught by our parents, and we're teaching our children kids. And there's missing things, but it goes all the way even to into our career services. When we have a youth come in, sometimes they don't know, they need to look you in the eye, they need to shake your hand, so these basics that help you really, really, really go to the next level, we are providing every day. So our caseworkers and our program people are always working with these youth to really help them from wherever they are to go to the next level and the next level and the next level, so that they can when they leave our programs, they are sufficient. They can take care of themselves. They know how to pay a bill, write a check. All the things that, well, maybe checks aren't that.
Do they still do that skill? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think my kids know how to write a check. Sorry to say.
I'm actually going to say this is a funny story that I don't want to interrupt with, but it reminds me when I used to work at Paradise Ridge with you, right. I had someone working under me who didn't know what side of the envelope the stamp goes on. And I was like, I would have never thought that was a skill that needed to be taught, but obviously it does. You don't send a lot of letters. Right. Yeah, so things like that.
Exactly.
Too.
So you see how that's the foundation for success.
Yes.
Like you have to have all those things. So really at each of the touch points within our programs, we're trying to do that.
Great.
We're trying to teach that self-sufficiency so that youth can rely on themselves and can really grow. And so it really is the foundation of everything we do, I think, is building of those abilities and those what we know as to be normal is like to be available for these youth to really fall back on, especially if things get hard again. It's like, okay, I know how to pay my rent every month. That's a big thing we work on.
Yeah, that's great.
If a youth can't pay rent from, for some reason, we will step in and we will, youth in our program will step in, and in the beginning, we're paying the most of the rent and they're paying a little. And then that starts changing and changing and changing so that they learn how to budget, how to do it. And then they get to the point where they're like, okay, I know I need to pay my rent on whatever day it is of the month. And I know that, so it's just really like, I can't call them baby steps because each step is a big step.
Yes.
But it's all these steps go together to create this, this person who can thrive, this community member who now has the ability to be, to be so many things. So, yeah.
That's got to be a game changer for everyone involved, to be learning, again, like you're saying, not baby steps, but, things like that. Like if you don't know those skills, basic skills, which none of our kids do, we teach them, but if they don't have someone there to teach them, that's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah,
wow.
So it's really, like I said, it's changing lives every day with every step. So
that's incredible. Yeah, what an amazing thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
How can listeners find you? Find ways to help? Where are you located? Your website, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we have. I'll start with our website because I'll say it maybe twice because sometimes, but it's SAYSC for Sonoma County. .org. So that's our website.
Great.
And we are on social media. So we're on Instagram and we're on Facebook and we're also on LinkedIn, for the business community. And all that can be found on our website. So it's best to remember sort of like to go to the website to find those. But you can find us if you type in Social Advocates for Youth.
Okay.
We'll pop up. There is one in San Diego sometimes pops up.
Really?
Yeah. It was one of the original organizations. Wow. We're not connected with them, but that was also one of the original organizations that changed that law way back when.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So they're still thriving as well, which is amazing, isn't it? It's really, I love it. I love history, and I love history like this because it's changing who we are. But so you can go to the website. You can find out about One Cold Night.
Great.
Also One Cold Night has its own. You can put in onecoldnight.org as well, but you can get there through the website. Either way, we'll get you there. Like I said, we're on social media. I can't remember. I feel like there's a second part of that question I'm forgetting.
I don't think so. However,
Okay.
I would love to know too. We mentioned that there's a crisis line. What is the number? But also, who can call that, and for what reason would they be calling the crisis line?
Yes. So we operate through our crisis. Our crisis help. We have a 24-hour. It's open every day, all hours of the night. It's a youth crisis hotline. Great. So it really is meant if you are a youth or you know a youth who is in crisis, you can call.
Okay.
And it's very, we have somebody always ready to answer that phone and help you or the youth that you're trying to help figure out what the next step should be. That number, and I think I have it memorized. I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to look.
Double check it.
It's 1-888-729 0012. So I'm going to double check it, but yes, that's right.
Got it. Okay, good.
It's on my business cards. I don't have to remember too much, but
Yes.
I actually have grabbed when I see sometimes youth that I feel like might need it at some point. Not youth off the street. Don't worry, I'm not grabbing youth off the street. Friends of my kids or whatever. I'm like, you know what? This is a number to keep handy.
Yeah.
Put it in your phone, and if you ever really feel the need to, need to reach out, you'll always find somebody caring at the end of that line.
Yep.
And I just feel like that's so important. Is just to have one more touch point for these youth that somebody who's there to support them. So
that might be a good phone number for many of us to keep in our phones too, in case we see anyone that needs help too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I literally once took a phone from a youth that I knew
and plugged it in
and said, "Look, I'm putting it in here. Remember SAY. I'm putting it in as SAY.
Perfect.
This is this is always going to be there for you, no matter what you have happening."
That's incredible.
And I always hope that if this particular person, needs it, that he'll call it. Yeah,
a reminder for them.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like going back to that. The youth really don't have an adult to count on, and that's what we want to be. We want to be an organization they can count on. So,
how do you build that trust? I know I'm kind of taking this a different direction.
No. So, like I said, we have the street outreach program. They're out. They're on the same days in the same areas, and we bring them. That's another way you can volunteer, actually.
Right. Oh, really?
So I'll get to that in a minute. But we bring them supplies.
Great.
So we bring socks and we have sleeping bags. We just finished a very successful sleeping bag drive.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we bring clean socks, sleeping bags, water bottles, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrush, essentials. We're out like power bars. We're out handing this out. And basically not asking for anything back. So here you go. This is what you need.
Build trust that
and
way.
then you come back, and so you're building your trust through these touches. So we do have organizations, but we actually just recently almost ran out of some of these street outreach items,
right?
Like the shampoo and all that stuff. And I'll give a shout out to Sonoma County Tourism. They came through with a big, huge bag of street outreach.
Wow.
Kits, and they were sweet enough to actually have written notes into each one.
Oh, I love that.
I know. So we do have that.
Great.
We also have if you go to our website, there's a help button. Give help, and if you click on that, there's also we do first home. I think they're called welcome home or first home kits.
Wow.
So you can put like things together to for the youth when they move out into their first home.
Oh, that sounds like it's up my alley.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to help with that one. I love that.
Yeah.
Making
so
those
that's
baskets.
I know.
That's
I just
fantastic.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then we also have school readiness backpacks. So we really like I said, we're trying to do everything we can to build that trust and to give the youth what they need.
Yep.
So if you go to our website, which is saysc.org, you'll find a ways there to give those kind of help as well as donate if you choose.
Right.
And it'll help if you want to support a sleeper, because our sleepers have their campaigns going right now.
Right.
You can also go there and Heather's one of our sleepers.
I know. I've got Heather's link ready. I'm like, I'm going to donate.
You can support a sleeper. You can support just generally, but there is a lot of ways to give back. I think, and
And you take volunteers to do that outreach as well, the actual outreach, or is that more for an outreach counselor?
The outreach, the street outreach is done just by our street outreach.
Okay,
team.
that makes sense.
Because if somebody like me comes, around, so the street outreach are a younger group.
I was going to say they have to be cooler than us, is what you're saying.
Totally. You're more cool than me, so maybe,
I don't know about that.
but I'm like, no. Well, I don't think any.
I think we give off mom vibes.
They're going to run from us probably.
But providing items.
Yeah, providing items, and we have a whole list of what those items are, and so different people do different things, and it is really helpful. It seemed for a while we had so much, and then there's a point with everything where things start looking. You really need it. You really need this to build the trust trust with these youth. So,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I'll put links too in my show notes for anybody that's looking to find how they can help. I'll have all of this linked. Anybody that follows my newsletter, I'm going to be sharing more information about One Cold Night. So that'll be out there and also on social media. So
Wonderful.
I'm so glad you came in today. Like, it
thanks,
was so important to spread the word on this. So I'm
thank you.
very grateful. So
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Amy.
thanks for listening.
If you like what you hear, please be sure to like and subscribe, learn more about Sonoma County and all that we have to offer here.